Hey y'all, I'm Elisa and I am the Scrappy Wife behind scrappywife.com, and today I have a traveler's notebook process video for you. I'm working in an A5 size journal for the month of February, and today I'm going to be documenting these silly pictures of my boys waiting at the school bus and a rainy day and just being extra silly with each other. So I have those pictures. I have this cut file from the Paige Evans Etsy store. And then I have some scrap paper from Felicity Jane. This is mainly from the Sarah collection, and then just a few scraps that I had in my stash. And I am going to put it all together on this journal page. I will put you on fast forward. Everything I use, I will make sure to link below. Otherwise, let's go. The first thing I'm going to do is go through the stack of paper. Like I said, most of these are from the Sarah collection, and then there are just a few scraps from previous collections. And I'm going to choose some that have blues in it and just some neutral tones. And I'm tracing out a circle, the circle that will fit with this particular silhouette cut file. So I traced my first circle, cut it out, and then I'll use that as the pattern that will fit behind all of the other circles. So just tracing it out over and over again. It is a little bit time consuming, but honestly it didn't take me quite as long as I thought I would. Usually I'm not a fan of using cut files like this because it does take more time and I like my memory keeping to go quickly, but that's okay. This one, I'm super pleased with how it came out. It allowed me to use a lot of the different papers that I've been hoarding and just little bits and pieces of them. And you can see I tried to mix up between the blues. I have a wood grain and then a really light scalloped one right here. And just mixing it up allowed me to bring in a lot of interest to the page without having to use up a bunch of my papers. I actually considered using some pops of yellow on the spread, but ended up changing my mind and deciding that I just wanted to stick with the blues and the neutrals just to really drive home that rainy season feel and the blue feel with my boys on the page. And I'm cutting out a couple of different ones of this. I was going to use the back of this circle and then ended up changing my mind. It just didn't quite work out like I wanted. So I grabbed some black and white spotty dots right over here to include as well. And the cool thing is when you cut out your silhouette cut files from the white cardstock, it really brings the whole piece together. So even though I'm using a bunch of different patterns, and this is for real, a bunch of different patterns, it all kind of feels cohesive because of the white cardstock that's putting it all together. Now that I have all my circles cut out, I just have to attach them to the silhouette cut file, and I'm going to play with the placement here, trying to remember that I have to work with the flipped side of the paper. So it looks kind of funny on this side, but here you can see I flip it over and kind of mess with the placement of the pieces. And then I will adhere all the pieces with just a little bit of Elmer's glue right around the edge of each ring. Now my cut file is done, and while it really dries, I'm going to place it right over here, figure out where I'm going to want it, and I'm going to do some mixed media. So I start by prepping my page with some gesso, mostly because I plan on using a lot of water on this, and these pages aren't really meant for a lot of mixed media or a lot of watercoloring, so the gesso helps strengthen the page and it keeps it from bleeding through on the layout that's on the other side of this left-hand page. So just getting some nice strong coverage here, making it as smooth as possible all the way to the edges, and then I will dry the whole piece as soon as it's all smoothed out and be left with a prepped page ready for watercolor. Combining some mixed media techniques into my memory keeping has been so fun for me. I love art journaling. It makes me just so excited to get to play with supplies and be free and open like mixed media allows you to be. And so bringing that into memory keeping has been a lot of fun. So I've really enjoyed it. I have my koi watercolors right here, and I'm using plenty of water in a big fluffy brush and really just laying the color down on the page. You can see there's not really any rhyme or reason to how it's flowing on the page. I know I want it to cover this top right corner because that's where my die cut piece is going to sit. Just mixing in, using plenty of water because I really want it to have a lot of movement to it. So I'm even going to spray a little bit more water on there just so it can move very easily. This works well because I did the gesso and because I let it dry thoroughly. If you don't let the gesso dry, it will definitely bleed through and super warp your page. So you want to make sure it does that. And then the gesso also just allows for some cool textures and patterns to come up. It allows for the watercolor to move more easily on the page, and you can see I'm coming back with just some water to help the movement even more. And then I also am wanting it to be in this bottom left hand corner where I will have some more of that silhouette cut file kind of living down there. So I want a base for that, and it's not really hard. There's no technique except to plop and move the color around the page. Watercolor likes water, so you need to allow for water so that it moves. Bringing in a little bit of iridescent metallic watercolor here just because I love the shine and shimmer, and I like how once I start putting it on, I'm seeing how it's allowing the other two blues to really blend nicely. So I'm loving that technique, so I'm adding it more and more just to really make sure there's no definitive lines between the other two blues. I'm drying that thoroughly. I really want it to be dry before I start coming through with my silhouette cut file. Once I figure out where I want that cut file to live on the top part, I'm just going to come through with scissors. Now I could have measured, I could have drawn a line with a ruler, I could have done a lot of things, but I'm just going to come through and kind of freehand cut a straight line because my memory keeping, I try to keep simple. I don't want to spend a lot of time making it exacting and perfect because for me that takes out some of the fun. So I have the leftover pieces kind of living at the bottom, and then I have this piece at the top. I'll come back and adhere that piece with my ATG gun to make sure there's just adhesive all over it, and then I come on the edges and add some liquid adhesive. I should have remembered when you have gesso, things don't really like to adhere to gesso because of the grit that is kind of in it. So I did have to come back and reinforce this large piece with some liquid adhesive, but it wasn't a big deal. It's still holding strong. Right here where the page is bound to where that gutter is, I just again cut off the file and then put it right over there on the edge so it still looks like one piece. And then I'm going to adhere this piece at the bottom, but as I start to get it down, I realize that the watercolor is just not exactly where I want it on this page. So I have this piece, you can see I'm kind of placing it down, but I don't have enough color down there. So again, I'll come back with my watercolor brush, add just a little bit more color, got a little overzealous there. I'm going to blend it out with some of the iridescent, bringing that blend just a little bit more, making sure it's nice and dry before I try to adhere anything down on it. I didn't add too much water right there. And then this piece will go down and I can trim off that last little corner. And just because I don't like anything to go to waste, I trim off this last little corner and I'll use it to fill in the top right hand corner by adding just some adhesive there, and it fits perfectly and it feels like that cut file can just go on forever. At this point, I'm kind of realizing that I had wanted to do some black splatters in the background and I forgot, and I don't want the black splatters to end up on that cut file. So I'm cutting some paper towels, just really freehand cutting it to protect those little spheres or those little circles, and I just don't want the black splatters to end up on those. So here I come with another towel, laying those down and getting my brush nice and wet with some black splatters and adding that to my page just to bring the two sides together to kind of have something that connects the two parts from the lower left to the top right. And I'm super pleased with how the background came out. I feel like it's really interesting, has a lot of texture, and I'm pretty excited to start putting my pictures on. I decide to mat my pictures on some of the coordinating blue paper. So I will choose the floral pattern, one of the basic colors, and then I actually end up going with some wood grain because I really like the wood grain that I have in one of the circles, and I want to bring that in another part of the page because it really warms up the whole layout. So I have my 3 matted pictures right here. I'm just making sure those last little dots are nice and dry there, and then I'll be able to mat my pictures. So I kind of place my pictures where I want them on the page. Some of them will be kind of tucked into the silhouette cut file right there, layered together. Love how those ended up turning out. And then I'm going through my Felicity Jane embellishment stack. So I keep all of the paper ephemera pieces in one drawer. Once that month's kit is done, I just kind of add them in. And if you didn't hear, Felicity Jane is not releasing a brand new kit this month. They have some sales going on and some fun combinations of different kits, but they're not releasing new ones. So this has been an awesome opportunity to kind of go through my stash and use up what I have. So I'm going through and I'm picking all kinds of black and white paper cut pieces or die cut pieces that I can use to embellish my layout, and I'm going to just place them in different places. I do end up going through my other stash of ephemera pieces that I just keep in my drawer. I had a little blue here and there, and I like the detail that these are adding. This is something that I've been experimenting with. I'm not usually great at adding extra embellishments or extra detail. I like to get the main focus on the page and then just add the journaling and that be that. But I really think the details that you can go through and add to projects like this really make the difference in creating a really unique page. So I try to, once I get my background, add my pictures, then I try to go back and look for details a couple of different times, just layers of details that I can add. Not that it needs to be overdone, but just that it adds a little something extra to the page. So again, just hiding some different ephemera pieces on the page. Black and white really works well with the layout. One blue piece that says "This is everything," because I just love spending that time with my boys in the morning, and I also love when they're on the bus and headed off to school, because that means it's a little bit quieter in my house. So that blue label piece over there on the right, again, not wasting any pieces, adding a little extra adhesive and putting it up there on the left. Here's where I'm going through and just reinforcing with that liquid adhesive, and then I will adhere down the season die cut piece, and then I'm going to add with some puffy alpha from Felicity Jane the word rainy, because it was just a rainy day and we've had a rainy season recently in Northern Virginia. It feels like winter just skipped over us, and instead we've had an extended rainy fall / spring. It just we haven't had snow, but we sure have had tons of rain. So adding my alpha right there, and then I'll come through and look again. This will be the second pass through to see if I can add any extra embellishments. I love these little enamel pieces. I'm going to use these crosses in several places, and it's kind of a deep blue that really brings out the blue, the solid blue color that I have in those circles, and so I like that I get to use that on the page. I'll come back through with a ruler and a micron pen to add a couple lines for journaling. I purposely make the lines pretty sketchy because I know I have trouble drawing a straight line. So if they're sketchy, then it looks like it's on purpose, right? I considered maybe typing out my journaling, but thought I only have a little bit to say, so I will just hand write that on about how my boys are just extra silly and extra full of energy every morning, and they just keep me on my toes. Now I feel like the top left is a little bit blank, so that is where I will put my date and set my date stamp up and just add that in with a couple different layers, and this layout is done. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button as well as that bell notification button. All the supplies I used are linked below, as well as a link to join my email newsletter that I send out every couple of weeks with organization tips and scrappy fun. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you have a fabulous day, and as always, keep it creative.